Welcome to the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast, where our goal is to recruit, educate, and inspire new hunters and to entertain the rest of you. Without the mentorship of responsible, conservation-minded hunters, this passion as we know it faces an uncertain future. So please stick around and be sure to check out our Facebook group, Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast, and like our main page at Foul Front Outdoors right after this episode. All right, welcome to podcast episode number 5. Today we've got Matt from High Prairie Sportsmen, who's going to be talking to us about decoys and decoy strategies. All right, it's a good show. Go ahead and we'll listen in.
Okay.
All right, Matt. Well, why don't you give us a little introduction?
Okay. Hey guys, Matt here. I helped founded High Prairie Sportsmen. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Basically, we're just trying to make outdoor videos around Nebraska, but also around the country too, but mainly Nebraska. A lot of waterfowl content. We got a lot of fishing content coming this summer, so check that out. I know Ben from college. That's how we met, through our good friend Tony White.
Yep. I think we even, I think you were you took me on one of my very first duck hunts in my formative years. That is, we went somewhere up north of Lincoln, and we stopped at some diner. I don't know. We shot a few green wing.
I think that was Wildwood.
Oh, okay.
And then, went to the old Ding-a-ling.
Yeah, the Ding-a-ling. There's no plug for the Ding-a-ling here, so we're not getting any money. But no, just kidding. Yeah. So Matt, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do with High Prairie Sportsmen? Yeah.
So I guess I run most of the social media accounts, and I do all the video editing right now. Other than I guess Ben does some too. He's got his own playlist on there, so you guys should check those out and tell him to do more.
Yeah, not as expansive.
Yeah. That's about all my goals right now, or all my responsibilities right now. We are starting to lead into more, what am I looking here? Merchandise kind of stuff. So we got decals on the way, and we might be doing shirts and hats here soon. So stay tuned for that if you guys want some of those.
Sweet. You think maybe in the future we'll have you on to talk about, how we film hunts and how to capture some of your memories while you're out there? Think that's a possibility someday?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we can do that. That's something I'm actually, I've just been learning it on the fly. So I love talking about it to new people that that are interested in it, basically.
Sweet, man. Yeah, I know. I try to cut my teeth and try to record with just my one GoPro and a camera from my phone. And I know that your stuff looks a lot better than mine. I don't know if I have to play with my settings or something, but I spent actually, we just had our first baby here, and we spent all morning this morning listening to you and Devin shoot some ducks on YouTube. So
awesome! Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, congratulations! If you guys don't know, Ben is a new father.
Yeah, I think I've plugged it a few times, and
okay.
I don't think it's not as tiring as the multiple duck days in a row. Going out, morning evening hunt on Saturday, morning evening hunt on Sunday, and then catching a morning hunt on Monday. I think I've been more tired then.
Yeah,
but we're pushing it. We're getting close.
You're just getting your practice in.
That's right. So today we're going to be covering decoys and decoy strategies with Matt from High Prairie Sportsmen. And so I think that we should just I think a good base to start off is going into the types of decoys and covering what there is out there on the market, kind of what you use. I think we'll just start it off by talking about the different species, sizes, and then positions. People, you think, oh, I just go get a mallard decoy and, that's it. But there's magnums, I don't know if there's minis, sleepers, butt up, that kind of thing. So
yeah, there is the sky's the limit when it comes to decoys, and you can make your spread as expansive and detail oriented, or you can make it as complex as you want or as simple as you want. And I guess it's really depends on your region and what what you're going after to hunt. So do you want to take this, Ben, or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, it's good. So, I mean, like, what kind of species do you run? Because you hunt mostly Nebraska, Sandhills. Is that the Platte and the Loop I saw there, or?
Yeah, we do some of the Platte. We'll go back east and we'll hunt like the Blue, and then some of the lakes around Lincoln and the areas like that.
Yeah.
Just kind of all over the state. But yeah, I guess I'll just jump right in.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I have basically for my spread is I run Avian X and I run Greenhead gear, and I like those mainly for the reason that they have really high detail. I just like how they look.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not plugging those by any means. That's just what I like to run. I just like those because how detailed they look, how nice they look to the ducks.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we kind of fall into not two different camps, but kind of different spectrums when it comes to decoys. You like the high detail, and I think you probably spend a few bucks on your decoys, and probably take a lot better care of your decoys than I take care of mine. But I'm the garage sale Craigslist guy, and then paint them up myself, kind of dude. And I think both ways work. It just depends on how you're getting into it. I think that you're a little bit more of a minimalist when it comes to throwing spreads out. Is that correct?
Yeah, doing public land hunting how we do, we can't really load up a truck or a decoy trailer and haul it out there. So we got to kind of be selective with what we're doing. So that kind of dictates what we got to use.
Yeah, so I think that speaks a little volumes. You're getting it done with less but being more efficient, and I think I make up for what I lack in quality of my decoys and technical knowledge probably with numbers. I think you talked about that in one of your videos that I saw. But
yep.
Yeah, go ahead. And then, so I guess let's talk about, a decoy is not a decoy. There's mallards that are in, butt up positions. There's mallards that are in sleepers, preening, feeding, just kind of, I guess, talk to why that they have all those positions, Well,
yeah, I guess, well, the answer, that's pretty simple, really. When you see a duck, they don't always look the same. There's ducks, they're feeding, or whatever you want to call it, preening themselves, sleeping. They're doing a whole bunch of different stuff. They're not just, standard, like a standard floater, just head up, not moving at all. So that's kind of, when decoys first started out, that's what it really was just, just the standard decoys, head up, and that's what we're going to work with. But as, duck hunting has advanced over the last, probably 2 decades, you see those more intricate decoys. You see, you're just trying to find that realism factor with them, I think, is what it really boils down to.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing is realism. If you got a bunch of statues versus, duck decoys versus, an actual live spread, there's some huge differences there. Not everybody's looking the same, and that makes a lot of sense, and kind of a good transition into, I guess they have different sizes for the same reason. Not all ducks are the same size, but I think when it comes to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, they have magnum size decoys, and that's not so much just to add, realism to the spread. It's more to catch the duck's eyes from further away, and then just add that variation in size.
Yeah. So basically, how I understand it is ducks and geese they have poor depth or no depth at all, so they can't really see space
And that's how things like silhouettes work for ducks and geese is they don't have that depth perception that like humans do because the eyes are on the side of their head rather than straight forward.
Yeah, that's why I think when you like, I don't know if you've ever seen the when a goose is coming in, his head's going back and forth, left and right, real quick, and I think he's trying to, because he's really only got 2D, he's not got predator eyes, so.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's why them oversized decoys work like that. They don't really see like, oh, hey, that's a really big duck. They just like, oh, look, this duck sticks out more for some reason to us, so we're gonna go land with it. Right.
So I think that would be an interesting future topic, and I've touched on it a few times, especially in the 2 episodes ago, I think, just really how ducks see. Because I think that, you know what I mean? We spend all this time, picking out these camos, and does it matter? One of those things. And then, you can completely ruin a hunt with some ice on your decoys, and we'll touch on that later. But yeah, so we've covered, different, if there's a species of duck out there, there's a decoy for it, right, Matt?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And some cost more than others. I think your generic one that you're going to get is the regular sized mallard statue head up position. And that's probably like any variation off of that adds price or detail. So I guess we'll just transition now into the different types of decoys when it comes to like, first of all, we've got the floaters. That's your standard, plastic decoy or I guess foam decoys too is what they used to use. But those generally, they wind up in the water, and that's probably what you're thinking of when you're thinking about decoys, the floater decoys. And there's a lot of different variations, as we said, when it comes to those. But I don't think we have to spend a whole awful lot of time on the floaters portion of decoys.
Seems pretty basic.
Yeah. And then you've got your land realm decoys that wind up on land. And you want to just talk about some of the different types of decoys that we put on dry land or shallow water. Yeah.
So most of these, with these land decoys, it seems there's more variation in goose decoys specifically rather than ducks. Like, I don't, like, first talking just like shells, let's just talk about shells. I don't really know of many duck shells that exist out there, but there are tons of goose shells out there.
Yeah.
And
that's an accurate statement. So
yeah. So I mean, there are land decoys for ducks, like the full bodies, and there's silhouettes out there for ducks too. But I don't know if are there socks. Have you ever seen duck socks?
I think I have actually. I can't remember the company that does it, but yes, there are socks. For ducks. And just so y'all know, so we'll back it up a little bit. Shell decoys are basically, they look like a floater decoy, but they don't have a bottom to them, and they're extremely lightweight. Usually the heads pop off of them, and you can carry a bunch into the area because they stack on one another. And obviously they can't float, so you just set them on the ground, and it looks like a duck or a goose that's laying on the ground. And then he was talking about socks, and that's essentially you want to explain socks, Matt?
Yeah, so socks are just like a little tube of some kind of material, and they just catch the wind. And when there's wind, they'll move around gently, kind of with as the wind blows, and the wind will fill them up too. So they're really lightweight. You can smush a bunch of them together, carry a bunch of them out to the field with you, which is what you want on for like land decoys. They're pretty. You'll see a lot of socks you'll see some for Canada goose hunting, but it's a lot of snow geese too. Yeah. They like to use socks.
Yeah, absolutely, and that gives some good motion into your spread, and Canada geese they don't like too much motion in the spread, but I'm assuming snow geese do, since it's so prevalent. But all right, so we've covered shells and socks, and then we've briefly mentioned full body decoys, and that is pretty much exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's just a full body decoy. Usually, it looks like the duck or goose is standing. They're pretty hollow, but they still can add up in weight just because of the amount of plastic or material used to make them. But they give that extra sense of depth compared to like silhouettes.
Right.
They kind of it just depends what you want them for. You got your shells. It looks like the birds are kind of resting or feeding or whatever. The full bodies look like they're standing up and feeding, or they'll be, you have a couple sentry positions or a bull, talking like Canada goose here again. It just kind of, and they'll make them with different head shapes and kind of postures and stuff. It just kind of adds more variation into your spread.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that'll tell you that you can only kill Canada geese over full bodies, and I would say that too if I sunk $12,000 into decoys and then another $6,000 into a trailer.
Yeah, have you seen those full bodies they sell? They're like $1,000 for half a dozen.
What?
Yeah, no joke. Saw it on Platte River Mafia. I think it was last December or something. These guys were selling them for like $800. And there's guys on there that were like legitimately interested, and they're like, "Yeah, these whatever kind of decoys they go for like $1,000 or $1,200 new." I'm like, "What?
Are they stuffers?"
No, I don't know what they are, but they put them right in their kill hole, and they just I don't know. It's supposed to just make the geese just come right into you.
Gosh, they better be like robotic and like call for me, like.
Exactly. And shoot the geese too.
Yeah, they better. I better just set them out there and then come back and have a bag limit full of geese at that point. Nah, just kidding. But what I said, stuffers. I didn't even have that written on the paper. But there are some people that literally get geese taxidermied and use them as the decoys, and that's about as real as you can get, don't you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, if you do it right, and I know that stuffing is really common for sandhill crane hunts because there's not a lot of those decoys out on the market.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look at like different sandhill crane outfitters or videos, they'll kill their cranes or whatever, and then they'll skin them out and make another decoy out of them, essentially.
Wow. Yeah, that's. I have something on that later, but we'll save it. I wrote it down. We'll remember it. Okay. So we've got shells, full body socks. Let's hit on silhouettes, silos.
Yes. So silhouettes, they're just flat decoys. Basically, it's like a 2D print out of a duck or goose. I guess you can make them. We've made them out of like plywood before too, and then you just paint them up yourself. But they're just 2D versions of that. And once again, they work because, ducks and geese lack that depth perception. So they'll turn and then it'll look like there's a bunch of geese there, and then they'll turn another way and now they're all gone. But I don't know.
You ever hunted over silhouettes?
We have like a dozen of them. Just we'd put them on the bank when we were for geese, and they seemed to. I mean, we shot geese, so it didn't hurt them.
Right.
They didn't mind it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to break into goose hunting because you can do a pretty good job on some DIY ones yourself, or like get some Big Owls. I think is like the number one brand in silhouettes, and you can carry not even a boatload. You can carry more than a boatload with one dude. So
yeah, definitely a good thing to look at too if you're just starting goose hunting.
Right. Well, let's talk about getting some motion into the spread. Let's just hit on some of the motion decoys that are on the market.
Okay. So starting off, I guess we'll just go with spinners. So you guys, if you've been around waterfowl in the last, I don't even know, 10, 15 years, you've probably noticed these things take off, like Lucky Duck, Mojos. Basically, their winds just spin around in circles. It's supposed to look like a duck landing. when they first came out, they were lethal. People were just stacking birds, and now you got to kind of pick and choose when you want to use them. It really depends on the day. In my personal experience, I found that cloudy days don't really attract them as much, but a sunny day can. I don't know. It just looks more natural or something. I have no clue how it works, but
I think so. We'll talk about some mojo strategies later on in the episode. I think.
Okay.
I think though it's safe to say for as many different hunters as there are in North America, there are that many opinions on when mojos work and when mojos do not work.
That is accurate.
Yeah, I think so. At least I know the only arguments. Well, maybe not the only arguments. Some of the most biggest arguments I have in the field with my buddies is over, one, whether or not shot string exists, but two, motion decoys, like where the spinners need to go, whether or not they need to be out. So there's as many different. I think I've seen green-winged teal. I've seen definitely mallards. Are there any? Do the spinners have any other really breeds that they do?
I think there's a gadwall out there now. I know Mojo made a shoveler last year as a joke.
Nice.
It's an ugly looking decoy.
Is it?
But yeah, you got to go search it after this. It's pretty funny, but
hey, man,
I think that's
green's
about
green,
it.
right?
That's true. That's true.
But
got limited greenheads.
So one thing that I do, and I don't know if I've told you this in the past or if you've just seen it in my videos. You know, I own 4 spinners, and they're all Dove spinners.
Okay.
And I use those during duck season very successfully. And they're cheaper. You know, what does a mallard mojo run us? Like what, $70 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, them darn Dove mojos, they cost about $30, I think. So I can get about twice the spin in action for, you know, the same price. People have definitely given me some crap about it, and then people have been like, well, all right, well, whatever works for you wouldn't work for me. So, but like I said, we'll get into mojo tactics a little bit later. All right, so moving on from spinners, I know that I went to a Ducks Unlimited banquet this last Christmas break, and I actually lucked out and got one of those mojo or those Higdon outdoor splashers, the pulsator, excuse me, yeah.
Okay.
And it splashes, you know, it's got a little sub pump on the bottom of it, and it looks pretty cool. And it seems, I put it right in the kill hole, and it just adds that extra bit of splashing and realism. Looks like a duck feeding, so.
Yeah, I've seen those. They kind of just do they spin. Does yours spin in circles too, or something?
No. It's just the one that it's got a pump on the bottom of it, and then a hose that comes out and aims it right at the butt.
Okay,
it's a feeder decoy, and it spits the water at the butt, so it kind of like has this rocking motion, and it creates a bunch of splashing and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm thinking of the ones like they have a little wheel on each side of them, and they kind of just spin.
Yeah. I've seen those too. And that's the other thing too is you have spinner decoys that they sit on poles, and then there's spinners that are floaters too. So, but yeah, back to those splashers. You've got the ones that kick water out, and then you've got the ones that, yeah, like Matt was saying, it has the little orange feet that, you know, pedal in the water. It's pretty cool. And then I've also seen. Have you seen those swimmers and those keel motors that they have?
Yeah. Yep.
You ever used anything like that?
No, but I think that'd be fun. Mm-hmm. I actually saw a video of this guy. He took like one of those little remote control boat motors.
Yeah.
And he put it underneath a decoy, and he was driving it around.
And then
that would be fun. I think.
Didn't he throw a bobber with a hook on it, and that like he was retrieving his ducks that way too?
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah,
that'd be smart.
Yeah. You don't have a dog, right?
No. Nope.
Yeah. And then I don't have a dog that's worth taking out. So, anymore at least. And so that'd be something. That'd be pretty nice. But all right, so back to the motion. So we've hit the spinners and the splashers, and then there's flappers. I know I've hunted over just a goose flapper before, over in a field just once. It seemed to work pretty good.
Yeah, they look kind of goofy looking, but they seem to do the trick. I've hunted with them a couple times, but we've killed geese with them every time.
Yeah, and just to give you a visual, if you don't know what the flappers are, it literally just looks like a bird is flapping his wings, and they usually come on tripods. So, if you don't want to shell out all the money for these different kinds of motion decoys, there is the old trusty jerk rig.
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about jerk rigs? Because I know some people, people in Pennsylvania and Washington, they can't use battery-operated decoys.
Yeah, so jerk rig is probably the oldest motion decoy out there, or decoy motion system, I guess would be more accurate. Basically, it's just a string with an anchor on the very end of it, and you have clips on it, and you clip them to your decoys, and you just pull it, and it looks like 4 or 5 ducks are kind of just swimming in a line or moving around. It's breaking up your water. So you don't have what's essentially glass out there, because that doesn't look natural to ducks at all.
Right.
It just makes ripples, just makes it look like ducks are feeding or just swimming around having a good old time.
Yeah, and I think the jerk rig is probably, if you're going to, if you're just starting out and you're going to get a dozen decoys. If you're debating on whether or not you're going to get that second dozen, go ahead and spend the $12 to get yourself a jerk rig instead. Or there's DIY versions of it out there too. They're pretty simple, and honestly, it's we talked about quantity versus quality, and that really ups your quality to add some motion to your spread.
Yep. And I guess the last thing that really can improve your spread is confidence decoys. If you want to jump into that.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay, so personally, I use coot decoys, and
Yep.
I've gotten some weird looks and even some laughs when I show up in the morning with my coots. People are like, "Are you gonna go coot hunting?" I'm like, "Heck no, those are confidence decoys." People, out here where we hunt, there's coots everywhere. You don't see ducks on the water without coots, it seems like. So it just makes sense that our decoy spread should reflect that, because we're, once again, going back to that realism factor.
We're in the same camp on that one, man. And you've heard my story about when I first started duck hunting, and I had a bunch of crappy decoys, and I painted them all like coots because those were the only birds I was seeing out where I was hunting, and I didn't know the difference yet. So
yeah,
I've still got about a dozen coots left in my repertoire, and they're super easy. You just hit them with black paint or truck bed liner, and then paint the bill white.
It's really easy. If you want to cheat, want to repaint your decoys for cheap, that'd be the route I would go.
Yeah. And then besides coot decoys, I guess really confidence decoys aren't a specific. It's not a specific type of decoy. It's just how you utilize decoys, and then the different kinds of decoys. So a couple geese decoys at the edge of your at your duck spread. That's confidence decoy.
Yep. They got heron decoys or even swan decoys. Mm-hmm. Even if you can't hunt swans, you definitely can't hunt herons. But you put those in, and they just add, it just makes those birds feel more comfortable diving in. It's one less thing that they can, they're like, oh, look, this thing is here, and they don't get shot at, so I can land with these and be safe.
Yeah. I got a spot that I'm going to be hunting this year, and it is covered up in trees basically all the way around it. And it's got just this one spot where I can set up either a blind or a layout blind. And I think I'm going to take my my deer target and set that out there like it's taking a drink. We'll try that confidence decoy out this year. See if the ducks are bothered by deer or turkey. What do you think?
I'd be very interested in knowing the results of that. I think that's a good idea.
As always, this episode is brought to you in part by High Prairie Sportsmen, a group of conservation-minded outdoorsmen and women who have a lot of great content over on YouTube. Just go search for High Prairie Sportsmen over there and you'll be entertained for hours. You might even learn something. They're very close friends of the show, and without them, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be possible. Okay, back to the show. Yeah.
As long as it's not rifle season, I guess.
That's a great... I'm writing that down right now, Matt. Gosh.
But you're in Kansas, so I don't even know if they have a rifle season unless it's like a late rifle.
Dude, I don't know. I haven't shot my 270 in probably 6 years. I'm a bow hunter now, and that's what I spend all my time on. And actually, though, I just watched your reaction to your buck during, was it last year's?
Yep.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, oh man, I got to go sight my rifle in, and like, that's one more hunting opportunity that I can get in. And actually, the places where I hunt deer, I got a buddy who owns some land up in Nebraska, up by Bolus, and that it'd be a chip shot with my rifle, but yeah, okay. So back to confidence decoys. Sorry for talking about for
no, that's all right.
But yeah. So essentially, and I don't know if this technically qualifies as confidence decoys, and we'll get into the different components of the spread and the different formations or types of spreads you can set out. But I usually put one or two decoys right in the middle of the hole of my kill hole, and I call those are kind of confidence decoys. So it's just how you array things, because like it might look really strange to just have a bunch of birds over here, a bunch of birds over there, and then this big old hole and nothing in that hole. So
yep, I would count those as confidence decoys. I mean, right. That's what they're keying in on when they're looking to land. They're looking at those two. So if they're not good, they're gonna peace out.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to let new hunters know if they're getting into waterfowl season and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to buy a dozen duck decoys or half a dozen goose decoys. I think the best duck decoy is a goose decoy. I don't know how you feel about it, but
I would agree.
Yeah. So that being said, I love my duck decoys because you can just throw a crap ton of them on your back and head on out.
Yeah. I guess, how do you have yours rigged up? Do you have them in a bag, or do you Texas rig them? Or?
I've got different rigs for different situations. And right now I would say, well, I'll tell you right now, none of my decoys are rigged right now because I cut them all because I was so frustrated with them this last season. And I ended it. And I'm going to end up buying me some of them Lifetime rigs. Have you heard of them?
No, I don't think so.
They're like a steel cable covered in plastic instead of just the monofilament. So yeah, like most decoy lines are monofilaments, right? And they have a lot of line memory. So like if you have them wrapped up on the keel, they'll like be all bent. If they hang up wrong for a while, they get a little memory in them. And then all the monofilament plastic little wire that I've been buying, like it lasts maybe like 2 seasons with the way that I hunt. And so I'm tired of every summer, at the end of the summer, when fall comes rolling around, I'm sitting out in my garage, cussing at myself, crimping plastic line onto my decoys. So I think I'm just going to buy once, cry once, like on these Lifetime decoys rigs. But that takes us back to our, things. Those are called Texas rigs, and Texas rigs are it's a plastic line with a loop on one end and a free floating weight that just grab them by the loop, and then they're all hanging there.
Yep, that's what I like to run. That's what I have all my decoys on, actually. All my duck decoys, I guess. My goose decoys I have keel wrapped. It's just a decoy cord, and you tie it and you wrap it around with I got lead weights that you can bend around the keel itself.
Right.
Keep them secure during transport.
Right. The thing that is that I have with my Texas rigs versus my keel weight or my keel wraps is that I've been hunting a lot more not deeper water lately. So like my Texas rigs, I basically put them as long as like I can reach them, so they go up to my wader line, the top of my waders, and the cow ponds that I've been hunting lately, they I can't throw them out more than 10 or 15 feet without them floating away. Because I think it's important to let people know that like the Texas rigs, that's really for a little bit shallower water, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And then so about 50-50, I put half of mine on Texas rigs, and then the other 50% I put on keel wraps, and I make sure I keep them separated. So if I'm hunting short water, if I'm hunting shallow water, I'll use the Texas, and if I'm hunting a little bit deeper, I'll use my keel wraps, which I keep about 12 feet long or whatever I'm hunting. And, you don't have to undo the whole thing. So,
yep.
Yeah. You have any experience running like long lines or anything like that out in the middle of a lake?
I don't. I think that's more of a sea duck, diver duck, big water kind of decoy strategy. If I'm thinking of the same thing, from what I understand is it's almost like you doing a jerk string without the anchor or something, or you have the anchor. I don't know exactly how it works, but
right. So it's safe to say neither of us are real big diver hunters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once again with the way that you're rigging your decoys really depends on how you're hunting. If you're hunting a bunch of shallow water and ponds and river shallow, slow moving rivers and stuff like that, I think Texas is the way to go because you throw them out there and then you pick them up, and picking up Texas rigs is you redeploy those things just as fast as you deploy them when it comes to picking them up.
Oh yeah, that's why I like them. It's just simple, easy. Walk around with your waders in the clip, and you just pick them up, and you don't get your hands as cold. True. When it's like freezing. True. That's the main reason. Yeah,
with the keel wraps where you wrap them around the keel and whatnot, you got to think it takes a little bit longer to unwrap them, and then it takes a little bit even longer to rewrap them, and you're getting your hands wet and your gloves wet, and but everything has its ups and its downs. And then you can buy these things pre-rigged where all you do is just hook them onto your decoy, or you can go out and make them yourself. All you need is some monofilament line, a weight, and then some metal crimps.
Yep. And I guess I kind of went between. I bought a rig. I bought a do-it-yourself rig. I've got Rig-em-Rights on, so I just bought all the materials from Rig-em-Right or Cabela's, and then I made them myself, so that way I could control like the length of them. And I took out the free-floating weight, as usually you see on Texas rigs. I put one of those crimps in front of it, so it's down at the bottom. It'll stay there,
so it doesn't bang around when you're walking through the woods or something.
Yeah, just nice. Something I like to do on mine. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. Yeah,
for sure. And okay, I guess let's wrap it up on rigging, and then let's move into the meat and potatoes. We're almost 40 minutes in here. I hope you don't mind just going a little bit longer than we talked about, since we're kind of on a roll.
No problem. Let's do her.
All right, man. So let's talk about, everyone wants to talk about, okay, how do I set up my spread? And then it's immediately, check out this diagram. Check out this diagram. I think you and me are in the same camp that it's a lot more important. It can be broken down. There's components that go into spreads.
Yep.
There's effects that you do. So
yep. I guess the first thing, and it probably should be mentioned, I know you guys touched on it in a previous podcast, but the first thing I look at when I'm setting up my spread is wind direction. Because, I mean, you're going to hunt where you're going to hunt, and sometimes the wind's not always going to be perfect, but you can make it, you can have a better hunt if you set your decoys up so they work how you want to as best as they can in the wind and for the spot you're hunting.
Right.
And that's just, yeah. I guess, do you want to go in here on some of these or?
Yeah, as I was thinking about it, I got to, sitting down and analyzing the different effects that I want to achieve with my decoys. And that's a little bit more important, I think, than just saying, oh, hey, let's throw out a V or a lazy J or an L. And I think the first effect that we can both agree on, especially when it comes to wind, is a backstop. I want to stop the ducks or geese from going any further than my kill hole.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of slow them up, or kind of direct traffic almost is what we're trying to do.
Right. I want to make sure that they don't fly over out of my gun range. So what I'll do is basically whatever the wind direction is. Obviously, downwind is where you'll set your backstops, and usually a good portion of that is what's the effective range of how your gun, or where you're comfortable with killing these things. And so I think it's good to say that like a backstop would generally be a pretty good concentration of birds. Probably like 60% of my spread is devoted to stopping the birds.
I gotcha. I guess I kind of, well, yeah, I guess I kind of just, my decoy spread's a little different. I guess we can talk about that during the formation part.
Sure.
These terms are kind of, I haven't really, not too familiar with them, so I'm kind of visualize how I do it and in relation to them.
Right. And that's the thing too. And like we just said, so for the different amount of hunters out there, there's a different amount of opinions on this, but I think everybody kind of has this backstop thing, where, okay, hey, we don't want the ducks to go or geese to go any further than this. So let's, we'll stop them there. Maybe not everybody uses that technique, but it's a technique I think that is pretty common.
Yep. I would agree with that. So I guess we can go into pushers.
Yeah. So that's the next component. Excuse my, I wish I could have come up with cooler names for these. It's just, concepts that, so a pusher component would be like, okay, I see that the ducks, especially on a river, they're landing too far away from me down the river because they feel confident. They see my good bunch of my backstop over here, and then they say, oh, well, we'll just put it in here, and then we'll swim this way. So I'll put pushers at the other end of the upwind end of my spread so that they go, oh, okay, well, if we want to get to this knot of birds over here, we're going to have to land over top of these birds right here. So generally just something to like make them like, okay, hey, we're not going to land there. There's already birds there. We're going to just push past into this open spot. Yeah,
I like that. I kind of do that too. You especially like you said, river hunting. I think it's about the best place for it. Is you're once again trying to direct traffic with your decoys, and you're leading them to the kill hole. Essentially, right. Is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Another thing too that kind of a way that it played out for us when it really pops in my mind, other than river hunting for pushers, is we hunt this small farm pond, and I've sent you a bunch of videos from hunting that, and they would like to. A lot of the birds, they wouldn't land near the shore. They'd like to land right in the middle. of the pond. And so on our way out to pick up the first ducks, we would dump about a dozen and a half, 2 dozen decoys into the middle of the pond, and they would either put short of them or they would pop right over them into our kill hole. And just kind of like forcing them past a certain distance.
Yep, that I have seen those. You guys you hunted it great there. I like what you guys were doing. And some good video too. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. It's always nice when you can get on private land exclusively and not have to worry about fighting other people, and you can really pattern the birds there and really know what's going on.
Yep. So I guess we've been using this, all this terminology, kill hole, landing zone, all this stuff. I guess we probably should kind of talk a little bit more about that.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So in your decoy spread, you want to leave an opening, or I guess generally, I won't, because there's always an exception to the rule, but generally a decoy spread, you want to leave an opening for the birds to come in, and you want to be set up on that opening. That is what a lot of people would refer to as the kill hole or the landing zone, whatever you want to call it. That's where you're wanting birds to land. That is where you want to put your best decoys, because that's where they're going to be looking at last. That's their final destination, basically. And you want to have it. You want that spot to look extremely inviting, basically perfect. And you want to be set up on it or close to it, so you can, because that'll be your best shots. That's where the birds are going to be. That's where they're keying in on. That's where you want to be.
Right.
It's basically, I guess other people call it the X, and that's where you want to be. You want to be on the X. I think that's pretty much covers that.
That's a very simple. Yeah. You got it. You hit it good. So after landings, the landing spaces, the kill hole, the X, one thing that I found this year is you can use decoys for concealment. Like, I just called them concealment decoys. And it really started because these farm ponds that we were hunting, there's nothing around them, literally nothing. And so how do you hide 3 bumps, 4 bumps of layout blinds or A-frames? We couldn't hide from them. And so we just piled a bunch of decoys around us and just hid in the decoys. And we'd even I even on the end of on the feet of our our blinds, we would zip tie a shell of a goose decoy. And I think that's another important mention, at least, having some decoys right up on top of you to kind of take the eyes off of you and put them on those decoys.
Yeah, I know they do that. They do that in snow goose hunting a lot too. Otherwise, like you said, you'd have 4 or 5, or I guess snow goose hunting, 12 bumps sticking out in the middle of a field or wherever they're hunting. And that really, it raises some questions in the bird's mind. So anything you can use to help conceal, that it's
right. I know, and another thing too we've done is hunting out in the middle of a lake. We could stand in the middle of the lake, but what we would do is we would brush up our boat really good, and we'd all sit in the boat, and we would have a knot of probably 30 or 40 teal decoys about 15 yards in front of us, with a bunch of motion, just a jerk rig there. And then anytime that the ducks would get, obviously that's pretty conspicuous to have a big clump of brush out in the middle of a lake, we would pull on that thing, and that'd just give them like something to look at while they're coming in, and we'd, pop them then. So
I like that.
Yeah.
I guess going back to landing zones now, or you want to leave the landing zone open, but you need to have fillers around it to, direct them back towards where you want them.
Right.
do you want to go into that? Or
yeah, I think it's important if you've got several spots that are inviting for a duck to land in. You can't hunt all, 3 or 4 of those spots or 1 or 2 of those spots, simultaneously. So I think it's good to just block those spots, fill up the spots around it to really create that shape of that landing zone and really take away the bird's options.
Yep. And they don't, and even if we don't use the biggest spreads, like you said, we'll still use a couple decoys to kind of, take out that option or kind of just form basically a loose landing zone, kind of like just the, we're not throwing out big spreads, but we're using 1 or 2 decoys strategically placed to make that landing zone. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just doing more with less, basically.
Yeah.
So when I just want, so people hear fillers and just don't think we're throwing out 4 dozen decoys in one little small area, so the ducks can't land there.
Right. That's true, and it doesn't take much to dissuade a duck to not land in something. It's 1 or 2 decoys in a spot that's like, that really takes my options away. I'm going to have to really flap my wings to get down in there, where right here I can just glide in real nice and easy,
Yep.
So I think the biggest thing when it comes to all the components within your spread is, like we touched back earlier, realism. You don't want to put decoys a place that a duck isn't going to be, you don't want to. You got to watch the birds and make sure that you're placing them in things that are realistic.
Yeah, I would agree. And a lot of that goes back to scouting. I guess I could talk about this in the general formations too, but scouting is very important, at least for us when it comes to decoy spreads, because it lets you know what the birds are doing with what the current weather patterns are doing.
Right.
So, you don't want to go out there and just throw out a spread. You can throw out a basic spread and you can kill birds still. I'm not saying that, but if you scout and you get it, that just adds to that realism factor, and you might not have them circled 4 times. They might circle once and drop in, or
right.
On public land, they might come to you instead of the other guy who has 4 mojos going and a huge spread or something, but that's just the realism aspect. We just try to keep it as real as possible.
Yeah. Yep. And then, early season, it's not real important to have 10 dozen decoys out there, because that's not the way they're coming in.
Yep.
So,
yeah. But I guess
we talk about these formations now.
Yeah, we've been mentioning it long enough. Let's just jump into it.
Okay. So, what kind of, when people talk about formations of their decoys, they're talking about letters, because they generally kind of look like the shape of that letter. So, you want to just talk about some of the things that you utilize?
Yeah, well, so there's a bunch of different ones. There's the V or U shape. It's basically just a horseshoe kind of shaped decoy spread. You got 2 lines basically on the back end and then a bunch in the front end. Mm-hmm. And it's one of your most basic decoy spreads. I would say a lot of people use it, and you see it in all these decoy diagrams. You look up decoy spreads online, you're going to find the V or U shape. We actually don't utilize that one too often.
Yeah,
I don't think we used it at all last year.
I've utilized it on big lakes, just because I had to channel them somehow. And I'm talking, we had decoys out 80 yards because they were coming in so hot. We were just kind of funneling them.
Okay.
So,
I'm not really sure what the W is. Is that just
Yeah, no, so it's essentially, and I'll talk about this too in some advanced strategies that we had, but we had ducks coming in from multiple different kind of angles, and we had basically 2 shoot points set up. And so it literally just looked like 2 V or U-shaped setups going into 2 different spots. And we had, 2 shooters over there, 2 shooters on the right, because we could not pattern the birds and they were just being erratic. So we had to spread out a little bit and ended up just basically creating these 2 Vs. And I think the only time I used the U's or the Vs was on this big lake in New Mexico, where they were just coming in. Even the puddlers, they weren't up top. They were coming in low. Like, you didn't see them until they were 50 yards out, and they were just skimming the surface. And they would get pushed into our kill holes by just basically following these decoys. Kind of an interesting hunt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the one I can talk about. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to move on to the decoy spread that we use more than the other 2 that we just mentioned. Right. That be the L or the J hook. Mm-hmm. Even then, we don't use it too often, but I really like that J when you have a stiff wind that is perpendicular to where you're hunting. Like,
right. You're
facing one way, and it's a crosswind basically.
Yeah.
And you'll see them grouped up a lot at one end. Just kind of riding those waves for especially divers, because we have some divers out here. So I'll throw them divers out and the coots out there, and then some mallards closer to the bank. And then I'll run just a kind of a broken line along the cattails or whatever cover we have, because like they're kind of resting in the, calmer water. And that seems to do pretty good. Depending,
now, when you have your L or your J, do you have the long part of the letter or formation? Is that near you, or is that across from you?
It's near me. I like to keep it extremely open. So there'll be ducks right out in front of me, basically, or decoys right out in front of me, because it looks like they're just chilling out in some of that calm water. And I'll even have a couple geese at the very end of it, and kind of like offset from that end of that J. But they seem to key in on that big group, the hook of the J, when you have that stiff wind.
Right. I've tried both ways, and I found, I think, nominal success for having them closer to me. Plus, especially when you're hunting steeper banks, you don't really have the option to throw those decoys out as far to be able to create some space in between you and the long part of that letter. So I think that's an important, reason, keeping them in the shallower waters and whatnot. But I think you can use that J formation either way.
Yeah, yep. It's definitely site dependent, I would say.
Yep. Oh, that's everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yep. So, okay. I don't really use letters or these set formations like this, because I think a lot of people get into that stuff, and they I think you summed up what's your mantra or whatever it is for your decoys. Be different.
Be different. Yep. That's what I believe in. That's why we have. I mean, you think about it. The general duck hunter, and we're going back a little bit here, but they're gonna have the general duck hunter, maybe 2 dozen mallard decoys and some goose decoys, right. And that just your fair weather hunter going out, and we're going to hunt when it's nice. We're not, it's cold, I'm not going to go out. That kind of hunter's who I'm talking about. What we do, we do the different. We have the coot confidence decoys. We got diver decoys. We got teal, a puddler pack, which a whole bunch of different puddler ducks in it. And then different mallard kind of decoys. Right. And those all, they just are different than what other people do. And when birds are seeing thousands of decoy spreads over all their, over the migration, how many U formations do you think they see? How many J formations?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yep.
So we just basically my thinking is throw something different at it. If they don't like it, they don't like it, and I'll go change it up. But at least they're seeing something that, you know, they haven't seen thousands of times before, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, and that goes back, that's scouting back into that too. I mean, you see how they act naturally anyways.
Yep.
So it all connects.
Yeah, it does. It all comes around and it all relates to each other. So let's talk about spatial relationship between individual decoys.
Okay.
So I know that, you know, you hear stuff thrown around there a lot, like pairs, family groups, bachelor flights, singles. You know, how do you adapt the spatial relationship between your decoys? Are they a foot apart? Are they 3 feet apart? Are they grouped together? You know?
Yeah. So I guess really all I do is I'll do some groups, just kind of like flocks that randomly, depending on the weather, they're kind of there. But late in the season, I really love pairs. I love to do mallard pairs. So I'll put like a hen and a drake, hen usually in front, like the drake's chasing her or something. And that's usually about a foot, maybe 2 foot apart, depending on what I'm hunting, if it's a lake or a river.
Yeah, you're mimicking them basically pairing up as the season goes on, like we talked about, you know, in duck behavior.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So.
That ties back into that realism aspect. But yeah, so I'll put them about a foot apart or something late in the season, trying to mimic that duck behavior. I'll even have a couple. You might have one hen and 2 drakes, or even 3 drakes, like they're competing for her or something like.
Yeah.
Or you might just have a couple
flights,
drakes. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Or I guess courting flights is what those are called. Courting flights.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Singles, I guess, you know, it just kind of depends. You could put, if you have like one specific kind of duck, and like say you got a whole bunch of mallards on this river or something, and you have like one bufflehead decoy or something, kind of maybe put it up more off by itself or something.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of just site more independent, really.
Yep. I think, yeah. And then when it comes to like bunching up all of your decoys, people always tell you like, hey, don't have your decoys like bunched up real good, because that kind of shows like kind of dangerous, not relaxed. Whereas if they're spaced out, it looks more relaxed. But I have walked up on many a pond and many a duck spread, an actual duck spread, when it's really cold and when they're like feeding like crazy. They are bunched up. And so I will group my decoys really tight together when it's freezing out, because that's natural. You know?
I do the same thing. It's when it's cold, they're going to be really close together. And even when there's wind and there's snow or rain coming, they're going to be even closer together. Yeah. And they will land right on top of other ducks, it seems like, because they want to all get in that big group. Yeah. And
then I'll also, when it's kind of a warmer day or something like that, and I know that everybody's got their birds all spread out and looking all relaxed, I'll concentrate all of every single decoy that I have, and I'll put it in a bunch, and then I will add as much motion to that as possible with as many duck butts around the end of it, and just make that thing look like a feeding frenzy. And that seems to work really well, and being different, you know.
Yeah, and it would also work if you're on a heavily hunted lake. Everyone has everything spread out, and then you have yours all tight, because hunting pressure, they'll also get, they fly up, they'll go to the other side of the lake, but they'll all be in nice and tight because they're stressed out. They're kind of, they're weary or leery of danger. So that's one more like realistic duck behavior. I'm not saying it'll always work, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to try new things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I think we've covered quite a bit. I just want to if you got another 10 minutes with me.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. I just wanted to go over some advanced stuff that I've learned, throughout the past couple seasons and stuff that you might not pick up as a new guy for a while. And I was watching. Are you familiar with who Fred Zink is from AVNX?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So he changed my freaking world when, we'd be hunting out there. Not me and Fred. Me and my buddies would be hunting, and man, the spread's not working. All right, everybody pick everything up. They're all landing over there. Let's haul everything over to the other side of the pond. Dang it. Well, what Fred Zink does, and I saw this on one of his shows, he literally, he's got his whole spread set up, and they're all putting in on the other side. He leaves everything in place, grabs a different blind system, and sets up over there. And he calls it the nobody's home. And so he's got his whole spread that's worked over there, but the decoys, you just move to where the ducks are landing. You grab maybe a handful of decoys instead of picking up your entire spread, because they're landing over there already.
Yeah.
And so there's something over there that they really like, and your spread is putting them there somehow. You don't know how. But, instead of moving everything, move them on over there. Just, get over there quick, and you don't have to have nearly as much work.
Yeah, and that goes back to your pusher decoys there.
Yeah,
they're pushing them over there. But no, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that, but I could see how that would work.
Yeah. And then, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. While we're on the Fred Zink topic, I think he was also the one who said someone's like, "What's the best call?" or something, and he's like, "The best call is like decoys or something, or location or something to that effect." Like, it doesn't. If you can be completely silent as long as you have good motion in your decoys and your spread looks good, you're going to get birds in. Like,
yeah, there's a reason. Calling techniques are like episode number 12 for us. So, I remember my entire first year, I didn't even have a duck call. Well, I did, but I never used it. I just blew on the whistle every now and then. But moving on in here then, another cool trick that I picked up. I don't even know where I picked it up. But I grabbed a little bucket full of rocks and gravel. And what I would do is because I didn't have a lot of motion in it, it was just like a dead day, no wind. When the birds would turn away from me, I would chuck a handful of gravel and rocks out into my spread, into the landing. And then, they would, when the birds came around, they would see all the ripples and the motion from those rocks. And, I've got away with that a few times, and I've found some nominal success from it. I don't use it so much anymore, but it was definitely what I did before I had motion for my spread.
Hey, whatever works. How's that? I'm trying to think of that saying is something is the key of innovation, or necessity is the key of innovation.
Yep.
Yeah. So, hey, whatever works. If it works, then,
right.
Nothing to complain about. But.
Yeah. And we're just kind of fast, rapid, firing things through here. This is just if you have something that you think of, go ahead, just chime in. But I've got a rule. So we talk about, setting out decoys, and I've got 3 times that I don't throw decoys. I place them. I don't let them get wet. I gently place them in the water, and I've got 3 rules for that. And when I don't throw decoys is number 1, when it's freezing. Because if I get water on top of those decoys, they're going to shine and they're going to glare.
Yep.
So I keep them dry as possible. Number 2 is when there's unknown or variable depths. I do not throw a decoy. I know that my Texas rig, it can only, I can grab all my decoys because I don't go past my wader line, or just a couple inches below it. But one time I had my rigs, and I was hunting the Rio Grande down by El Paso, Texas. And that thing is generally really shallow. And I hunting a new spot, and I didn't even get in the water. I was just throwing my decoys out there, throwing them out from the bank. And I was like, sweet. Shot some ducks. They were all on the near side. And when I went to go pick up the far side decoys, I could not get to them, Matt. Because there was a channel in between.
Oh.
That was too deep for me to cross, and I went under. That was the first time I ever soaked myself. And then I've done it on the farm pond too, because it had pretty steep banks. I just a little bit of a toss, not even a couple feet from where I was standing. And sure as heck, man, I'd have a decoy floating halfway across the dang pond, in 10 minutes. Yeah. And then the third time that I don't throw decoys is when I'm hunting a super muddy lake. Because we know when you get your decoys muddy, it doles them up. And that's actually how you lose paint on decoys is mud. When that mud sits there and dries, it dries out that paint even more. And then when it flakes off, it takes paint with it. And plus, I don't like cleaning decoys as much, I'm sure that's a common sentiment for everybody. Yeah. But yeah, when it's super muddy, murky water, I place them. When it's unknown variable depth, I place them. When it's freezing, I place them. I don't throw them. Yeah. Now, obviously, if I'm running behind, I end up throwing a few decoys.
Yeah, I'd really agree. I don't really have run into the unknown variable depths too much because where we're hunting, it's usually pretty shallow. And we don't really have muddy water, but that freezing temp, I cannot agree with more. That's one way that'll just ruin a hunt, especially if it's sunny. If it's cloudy, it's not as big a deal, but if it's sunny, those things are just going to shine and you're not getting anything.
No. And then another thing, we're just kind of rifling through here. When you shoot a goose, that's one more decoy for your spread. Yep.
We actually, you can see that we did that in a couple of our goose hunt videos. We made those into sleeper decoys.
Yep. And then I know I mentioned it. I would just skip it in the sake of time, but I know I mentioned it earlier. But we were setting up on this the lake. I was telling you, like, we had our boat out there and it's like ankle deep water. But what we ended up doing is the ducks were coming in every direction because either the wind was variable, I can't remember, like if it was just blowing every which direction, or if it was minimal wind so they didn't care. I can't remember which one it was. But we set up decoys all around us, and there was 3 of us. One of us faced to the left, one of us faced to the right, and one of us faced 12 o'clock. And birds were coming in everywhere and calling them left and right, saying, hey, it's my shot, No, it's my shot. So I think let's hit on mojo tactics, and then let's wrap this up.
Okay, yeah. So mojo tactics, as I already kind of mentioned, in my opinion, which is no means correct for anywhere else, but I like to run them on sunny days and keep them away on cloudy days. And generally, I don't even bring them out after middle of November. There's guys that'll hunt all season. They'll have 5 or 6 mojos or however many. I've seen videos with guys hunting 9 or something. It's crazy how many mojos. Not trying to rag on you or anything.
No.
But I like to keep them away. Just, once again, going back to my mantra, be different. If everyone's using mojos, I'm going to be the guy in the marsh not using mojos.
Right.
It's just the birds. It seems like the old birds, they know what they are at this point. Mm-hmm. They are extremely educated to them. You'll catch some new birds and you'll catch teal because teal they just love mojos for whatever reason. They're not the smartest duck anyways, but at a mojo for teal season, you might be able to just call teal in with just a mojo. I don't know.
Yeah,
that might be a good challenge.
Now, one thing that I do is people say, "Oh man, you use mojos every day?" Like every time I hunt, I have a mojo going. And the thing is is they're great for long-range attraction. I think they're crap for finishing birds.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'll place my mojos 40, 50 yards downwind from the center mass of my spread. Or I'll put them in a super high visible spot. I know when we would hunt this one particular big lake in New Mexico, I would march my butt about, 50 or 60 yards up the hill and place a cluster of mojos there. Because that hill was visible where our cove was not. And it looked like birds passing through the saddle of this ridge to get to our spread. And so I always, I'm always fighting with my buddies. They always want to put the mojo in the hole, like right in front of us. And I'm always pushing them out, doing weird things with them, shoving them in the timber so that you can barely see them, but they're still catching a glimpse every now and then. But I use a lot of mojos, and I generally just keep them away from my spread, but it gets them close. You know what I mean? It gets them in the area. So
I like that. That's a good. I guess there's another decoy for you, an attraction decoy, or something like that.
Right.
But I think we probably talked these guys' ears off enough today. What do you think?
Yep, I think so, brother man. So, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, talking decoy strategies with me. This is like one of my favorite episodes so far. And if y'all are listening to this, you need to go onto YouTube and check out High Prairie Sportsmen. And Prairie is spelled Prairie, just so you're tracking. I did not know that, and I grew up in Nebraska. Have a college degree, and that stumped me. But, go check out High Prairie Sportsmen. They have some really awesome videos, and Matt is really good at educating and capturing some good content. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I'm sending you over there for my own selfish reasons. I got a hunting video up there that I'm pretty proud of. So,
yeah. And I guess have you mentioned that you're an HPS member?
Oh no, I didn't. I'm the HPS Oklahoma / Texas / Kansas crew now. So
Team Pipe Hitter.
Yeah, Team Pipe Hitter, as it were. Now Team Pipe Hitter has disbanded. Those boys, they're now up in Washington State.
Oh,
so yep. So maybe we'll get some content from them this coming season, and then definitely when we get into season here, I'm going to be getting some flyway reports from you boys from all over the country. But yeah, man. So I guess last thing is we going to hook up for a hunt this upcoming fall? Oh,
definitely. We will get it done.
I want to hit the Sandhills with you.
Okay. Yeah. Early October or all October, basically.
Okay.
Just let me know. Let me know of a date. We will get you on them.
Do I need to grab a kayak from my dad before I head up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could wait it, but it's kind of a pain. Yeah. So I would say a kayak.
I got all different sorts of little tiny vessels. I got that little pontoon boat. I've got that 8-foot John boat, and then my dad's got a couple kayaks that are camoed up. So, all right, man. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate all the insight. And once again, listeners, go ahead and check out Matt's High Prairie Sportsman on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff, man. All right, later, Matt.
Yep, we'll see you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like. And we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.